KINLOCH was the oldest black city in the state of Missouri, and for a long time it was a black middle class professional community until the airport started buying out large pieces of land in KINLOCH. Well, the city of St. Louis bought it out for the airport so that they could basically expand, which did not happen. So KINLOCH at one point was about 4,000 people. It was a community of 4,000 black middle-class professionals. We're talking about doctors, lawyers, executive administrators. And now there's about 400 people there living in deep poverty. So by the time I was living out this way, from kindergarten up until probably 3rd or 4th grade throughout Berkeley and near Fargesn, KINLOCH had just become definitely the place of, it was dope houses, it was abandoned cars and abandoned buildings, and it was the last place you wanted to find yourself if you wanted to, be safe. I was probably about 10 or so when I lived out here, and even then, there were still people that lived here. There were still people that resided in these homes. It was a community that was crumbling, but even then, it was still a community. And you can hear, the planes when they come over. You can feel the ground shake because we're so close to the airport, and there's no one here. I mean, we're standing here early on a Sunday morning, and so much of St. Louis is alive at this time. You can hear it. You can feel the energy of people. And here we are, and this looks like, parts of New Orleans post-Katrina. This place was built because black folks didn't have access to white areas, because black folks legally weren't allowed to live in places like Fargesn for a long time. And so, our people came together in places like KINLOCH and made these communities and built these homes and made this a place where their children could grow up and their children could have, safety and could have the actualization of their blackness in America. And just as people were building it up, there were also systems of racism that were tearing it down. So now we have, where doctors and lawyers used to live, and now we have this. And this is every house, that's going that way. There's trash heaps going all the way around there. And really, to me, this is about abandoned opportunity and abandoned hope of black Americans being able to have access and be able to build up our own. Because every time we've tried to do it, it's been torn apart. I had a teacher in high school who would always talk about how desegregation is actually what ruined the black community, and desegregation is what ruined black education and black schools. Because desegregation is when we were segregated, when we had places like KINLOCH, when we had places that we could be ourselves, and you had doctors and lawyers living right next door to working class people. But we all lived together, and once the black professional class got access to places like Fargesn, they got up and out, and they never looked back. They found that their roads led somewhere, and they took their roads and left the rest of us behind largely. And I think a lot of this movement in Fargesn, a lot of this Black Lives Matter movement is about kind of shedding the way that white supremacy taught us that once we had opportunity to leave, that we were supposed to leave. I don't think it's so simple as, kind of the ghost of segregation. I think as people realize that places like KINLOCH were built because we couldn't get into Fargesn. And as soon as we got into Fargesn, places like KINLOCH were destroyed. And again, now we're seeing that, although people can live together in Fargesn, they're not really living together. It's, you live there and you go along to get along, and as long as you don't rock the boat too much, you can all say we're all one community and everything's great. And as soon as people stand up and say, my life matters, then all of a sudden that's disunity, and that's the time where you're trying to tear stuff down, where we have places like KINLOCH that are quite literally torn down by a white supremacist system that says that we have no value, and our land only has as much value as they can use it to, expand an airport that never expanded.